individual hosts and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of Para X, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
Supernatural, metaphysical, paranormal. You know, all those things you've been wondering about? Are you ready to go deeper into the realms of the unknown? I hope you've got your walking shoes on, because life is an adventure, and this is the journey. Come on, let's go. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. It's the Journey Radio Show, and it's Wednesday night. We're talking about Bigfoot tonight, so we're showing up as the She-Squatchers. I'm Jen Kruse, your host, and I've got my trusty teammate, Jena Grover, on the line. Hey, Jena, are you there?
I am here, and boy, oh boy, do we have a treat today.
We do have a treat. Jena lined up this guest tonight, somebody that she met in person down in Texas at a Bigfoot forum that they had down in, I think it was Beeville, Texas. Okay, sorry about that.
I was corrected on that too.
Beesville just sounds interesting. Okay, so Rick Tullos is his name, and he's been researching Bigfoot for more than 20 years. So that's why the topic of our show tonight is 20 years of Bigfoot. So without further delay, let's bring Rick on the show. Hey, Rick, are you there? I think you are muted.
That's okay. It happens to me all the time.
It does.
We have sound.
There it is. Hi.
Yay.
Okay. Really good. How y'all doing tonight?
Fabulous.
Great.
Thank you so much for coming on, too. I really appreciate it. This is awesome. I'm so excited for everyone to listen. And, John, I can't wait to hear all the fun things he has in store for tonight.
Yeah, so when Jena was down at this event, she told me, I've met so many amazing people. I would love to have them on the show. I said, set it up. Let's bring them on. So I'm excited to learn more about you, Rick, and your research and the things that you've come to understand and believe about Bigfoot. Can you start out by telling us a little bit about how you got started in being interested in Bigfoot? When did that happen for you?
Well, it started when I was in school, around 9 or 10 years old. I started getting into like some of the Bigfoot books and stuff. I think there was a book called Bigfoot, Mystery, Myth, or Man. And then also that was about the same time that the movie The Legend of Boggy Creek came out. And then shortly thereafter, The Creature from Black Lake came out. And I remember those two movies. We used to have a place up in Arkansas, up around Heber Springs, and it was a little trailer that we would go to. And I would lay there at night, and I would just listen, and my mind would replay that scene where the Bigfoot shoves his arm through the window and tries to grab the guy. And my sister and I had bunk beds. I was on the top bunk right by the window, and I'm laying there thinking, oh no. So anyways, as a kid, I was kind of fascinated, a little bit scared of the subject, but it generated an interest in me. And I had been hearing so many reports coming out of the Pacific Northwest. And then my friend Scott, who lived down the street from me, he told me that his mother had a run-in with one at a intersection in Grenada, Mississippi. I was living in Memphis, Tennessee at the time, and said that there was something that had stepped out from behind a stop sign and was taking a swat at some of the cars that were passing by. So his hand was about like that big. I don't know if y'all can see that, but about 18 inches across. So whatever it was huge. And so I started kind of putting two and two together. It's like, okay, we have Bigfoot Pacific Northwest, got the Legend of Boggy Creek in Arkansas. Now they're in central Mississippi. And so I I studied up on the subject in my teens and all that. Then, of course, as a teenager, adolescent, I started going with my uncle and some of my family deer hunting, and so there wasn't a whole lot of tolerance for the belief in Bigfoot while deer hunting. Pretty much, they told me, "Oh, there's no such thing as Bigfoot. You're going to go to your stand or what?" Okay, go to the stand. 5:30 in the morning, pitch dark, little bitty flashlight, going there, and so, anyways, I grew up and I kind of lost interest in the subject for a while, and I got into the deer hunting and all. And so, a little bit later on in life, with the advent of the internet, I start kind of thinking, I wonder whatever happened with that, just kind of following up. And so I did a Google search at the time on Bigfoot and Bigfoot research. And about that time, that I landed on the GCBRO site, Gulf Coast Bigfoot Research Organization. And so I read a lot of what they had, and I saw some of the evidence that they gathered, and I was like, oh, wow. I had no idea that it had progressed to this point. And they would show pictures of tracks and, handprints on doors and things like that. And so I started thinking, I'd like to do that. I'd like to at least be able to, part of the time, because I always as a kid thought to myself, wouldn't it be cool to be a researcher in this, to be able to get out in the woods and, just have some of this stuff happen to you. Because I knew based on the sheer number of sightings that there had to be more to it than just a few people, seeing a little something here and there. And turned out I was right. The database, at that time was already in the hundreds. That's just the number of reports that have been turned in, never mind the ones that, people have seen things and not come forth and said anything, which was like my friend's mother. She had never really reported it to a database or anything like that. She just told us, hey, there's this thing in the woods down around Grenada, and so that's how I found out about that. But yeah, just pretty much through the process of doing a Google search and talking to people and finding out more. It's really interesting that.
Rick, can I cut in for just
Yes.
a minute? I'm so sorry. I'm just wondering how, I mean, did you have any idea before this, like what you thought, even as a child, did you have any ideas on what you thought Bigfoot was, or, maybe as an adult, if that had changed, if any?
I think that as a child, I kind of thought that they were like a Neanderthal or something. And then, as I started researching it a little bit more as an adult, I started thinking that they were more of an undiscovered primate. But then I've kind of flipped back on that because of I was listening to y'all's interview last week with the gentleman, and he was mentioning the Sasquatch Genome Project. And it's just, in the past couple of years, I've really, my thinking on the subject has been revolutionized. That gentleman that I was down there with, John Morley, mm-hmm. he is a really, really sharp wildlife biologist. And in getting together and studying with him, he's shown me a lot of things that I never knew before, and it just has revolutionized my thinking on the project, on the subject.
So how has that revolutionized your thought on what Bigfoot is?
Well, because I kind of bought into some of the hype. Okay, I had a sighting in 1999. And when I saw it, I didn't really see the face. I just saw it was a tall, kind of thin, black, shiny creature. It was actually, I wasn't even researching really at the time. I had picked up a truckload of scaffolding and was delivering them to a job on the east side of Memphis. And while I was talking to my boss, I looked over and here walks this thing. He walks out in the middle of a little fire lane, and he reaches like he's picking something up, looks over at me, and then turns around and walks back in the woods.
So you're not the only one that saw this now. I mean, you're talking how many people were with you when you
No,
saw it?
I was the only one that saw it. It was on a Saturday. My boss was facing me, and I was looking. He was like about 5'4" at the time.
Oh.
And I'm looking over his shoulder, and I'm just like, oh, you know.
Did he look at you and say, "What are you doing? Am I making you?"
I kept it to myself because I was like in shock and disbelief at the moment. I mean, it just took me back because I had just started kind of getting into the research in a little bit, and the thought kind of goes through my head that it can't come this easy. Come on. You know? So,
you got lucky. You're so lucky.
Yeah. But at the time, I was thinking that the things were primates, you know, primates as far as like great apes and all that, because a lot of what the GCBRO believes, you know, they a lot of the members believe that they're primates, and you know, I'm not going to quibble about that, but from what I've seen, you know, too many people have reported like the hooded nose, and no other primate in the world is a land dweller. What I mean by a land dweller, all the primates, chimp, orangutan, gorilla, they all have I think it's the opposable thumb toe along with the mid-tarsal break, which is used for climbing trees and grasping limbs. And we are the only primate, if you want to call us that doesn't have that, you know, because we're land dwellers. And it's the same thing with Bigfoot. You don't see that opposable thumb toe in the Bigfoot tracks. So to me, there's just several indicators. I worked with Mr. Morley on some of the recordings that they've gotten of the audio, and in order to be able to break sounds down into little syllables, you have to have the articular muscles in both your mouth and in your tongue, and there's just no way. The primates, the tree dweller primates, do not have the ability to break them down like that. No other primates have a chin like we do. So we have the muscles that attach in there for us to be able to break sounds down into little increments and create a language, you know, vowels and syllables and all that. They can make, you know, rudimentary sounds, but nothing really articulate like we can.
See, now I've been listening to some different things, and I've been doing a little bit of research, and I'm wondering, there's so much out on the internet that say that Bigfoot does have a language.
Right.
And when we were down in Beeville, you know, Mr. Morley was speaking about that language, and I happened to be looking online this week, and there is quite a bit out there, and you got to wonder. Okay, you know, I'm actually starting to change my views too, Rick. I used to call it a being or a creature. I really don't think it's a being or a creature anymore. I'm starting to think that it's more of a people. You know, like we were discussing, you know, in Beeville, and language and communication, and you know, they've got so many. What do you think about the language?
I think it's really interesting. Even some of the people that I know who have classified Bigfoot as an ape have said that they have heard them talking. One of them said that he had his son down in an area that we used to research, and he heard something sound like two people talking coming up the trail. And so he started up his truck, and then he took it up to a field, which was like along that trail. And he said when he stopped and he got out of the truck, and then he said he heard the loudest lion type roar. And he said he could feel it shaking in his chest. And then he said it sounded like the whole woods around that field sounded like the chimp section at a zoo. Okay, so they can make primate-like sounds, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're primates. I say primates. They are primates, just like we are primates. We fall into that family, but not on the same order as gorillas and chimps and orangutans. I do think that they're kind of like a type of people, but they're not exactly human. You see that when you look at their lines of tracks, you see, like we humans, when we walk, Homo sapien, when we walk, you have like a left track, a right track, a left track, a right track, and they kind of stagger back and forth. Whereas when you see lines of Bigfoot tracks, it's like they're walking a tightrope. You have the left, the right, the left, the right, and just it's what they refer to as a linear gait. And so they walk differently. There's a gentleman that owns a YouTube channel named Thinker Thunker. He did some measurements, and he came up with the video 21 degrees between Bigfoot and you. And he's talking about like the Patterson-Gimlin Bigfoot, how every single step out across that clearing was its trailing shin rise came up to 73 degrees, whereas humans go down to 52 degrees. So that's 21 degrees difference. So, and it did it every single step out across there was the thing, and made it look natural and kept it in that linear gait at the same time. So they're kind of humanish, but not quite the same as us, I would say. They're bigger, judging by their bulk and their build. Their bone density is a lot heavier, which I kind of think now, going back to my childhood, that my guess of probably what a Neanderthal would look like is probably pretty close. That's one of the things that he alliterated to in his video, is that the joints on that, he had like a red team, green team thing, and the joints of Patty in the Patterson film didn't match up with any of the joints on a human, but it matched up almost perfectly with the joints on Neanderthal, which, was strange. But the Neanderthal also had 2 to 3 times our bone density, which would make sense because something that big, they would have to have bones that are thick enough that with the heavy muscles that they have, because, you see these things, they're 300, 400, 500 pounds easy. So with the size of the muscles they have, where the tendons connect, if their bones were as thin as ours, they would break their bones with their own muscle strength.
Yeah.
So they've got to be pretty robustly built, to support that musculature on there. So
that's very cool. Well, you mentioned the size. What do you think the different sizes are and what they're capable of being of Bigfoot?
You talk about like maybe like the ceiling height on there?
Adult males or females. Do you know, or have you heard of anything about how tall?
I've heard 12 foot. I've also heard 14 foot. That would be a stretch because an 18-wheeler is 13 foot 6. So you're talking about something that stands 6 inches above the height of an 18-wheeler looking down on it. That's pretty big.
Ooh,
I'm not saying it's impossible, but I'm just saying that it's probably a really, really old individual. He's probably got a tree that he walks around with as a stick.
A walking tree stick.
Yeah, a walking tree. Yeah, but I would say that the 8 to 10 foot is a good estimate on like average adult size. 9 foot, let's just average it out. We'll say like about 9 foot on average adult size.
Okay. That's awesome. Yeah, and do you have any other information maybe on what you and Dr. or Mr. Morley were discussing in Beeville? Because boy, that was so much information. It was just wonderful.
Yeah, one of the things that we were talking about was like the human articulator muscles, and he showed a sonogram of the side of the human face, and it showed, like the guy, it was a young lady talking, and you could see like the tongue in there was just really, it would ball up and then it'd shoot out, and it would look like a little wild animal in there or something. It come up and touch the teeth and all that, but it's really fascinating to watch something like that, because I mean, just the intricacy of how we've learned. We don't even think about it, but you look at it on something like a sonogram, and it's mind blowing. All the things that have to come into play for you to get a word out, or much less a sentence or a paragraph. So, but yeah, we talked about that. We also spoke about the foot, the structure of the foot. How some researchers kind of think that there might be a mid-tarsal break in there, and one of the things that we contend is that probably isn't so, because of the fact that a mid-tarsal break would only be used in conjunction with that opposable thumb toe, because the foot would have to have the flexibility to wrap around tree limbs and things like that. So what you would need in a subject that large is a good solid support. So that would mean, if anything, it would have a much stronger arch support system in its foot than what some researchers alliterate to.
Okay. Speaking of, I was just wondering, do you think that all Bigfoot have the ability to climb, or that how orangutan or monkeys and everything, they climb so quickly, they've got that fabulous quickness about them. Do you think that Bigfoot has that same, or did you think that it's just too big and it wouldn't hold the weight?
I think each thing is adapted to its surroundings. So, for instance, if you're in the Pacific Northwest, I've heard of people talking about how they saw a Bigfoot and it cleared a certain amount of territory, with like lightning speed. So I think that they can climb, the same way that humans can climb, but they are far more muscular than we are. So I think that when they climb faster than we do. But they don't have the same tools at their disposal that like a gorilla or an orangutan does. They really don't have that grasping foot. Their foot's more like ours. Now, that being said, they don't have the constriction of, like, for instance, we wear shoes all the time. So we don't really reach out with our toes. There's a lot of tracks that have been seen where the toes, on one track, it'll be like a normal, track. And then the other one, you have all the toes just splayed out like they're grabbing mud and using their toes, along with their foot to grab hold of dirt. When they're
kind of at the same time as they walk, one foot's grabbing while the other one's padding.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
absolutely.
Well, I forgot what I was going to say. I have so many questions for you. As far as the Genome Project, what can you kind of explain the Genome Project?
I didn't get into that all that much, but I do understand. One thing that I understand is, and I think Melba Ketchum was part of that. They took some heat. Something about it coming back as human, but one of the things that I think the reason that it came back as human is not because of cross contamination. but because of the fact that these things are closer to human than what you think they are. So that's why so many times there's an old rule in science. It's called your findings will only be as good as the premise that you start from. So if you're starting from the premise that these things are an ape, and you conduct your findings, okay, I'm going to prove that they're an ape. No, you'll never get anywhere like that. What you've got to do is go where the science takes you and just, number one, prove that they are. And then after that, find out what they are by the clues, not by your preconceived notion ahead of time.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah, definitely. Like that. Oh, that's so awesome. Speaking of science, when did you decide that it was more on the science base that you wanted to stay versus looking into other things like cloaking or invisibility or mind speak?
Well, it was just, I kind of, I got out of it for a little while, and because there was just so much, and you know how it is in the Bigfoot community. You say Bigfoot to one person, and it's not going to mean the same thing as it does to 2 or 3 others and all that. Mm-hmm. So I just quietly kind of reserved myself and thought, well, I'll just get in the woods, just go in there. But when I met up with Mr. Morley, he's a wildlife biologist, and when he started breaking the stuff down to me, then it just started making sense. And so probably about 2 years ago is when I really dug in, and I thought to myself, well, that's it. I'm going to really start, hitting some of these areas and try to get good video and all that, because I want to, they're out there. I mean, I know they're out there. It's not a matter of proving to anybody that they're there or not there. To me, it's just proving what they are. That's my whole quest now, is what are they? It's not are they there, because I know they're there. I've seen them, but what are they?
That's a good way to go.
That is the question.
The $99 question.
Right. Oh, the $99 million
question.
Yeah,
$99 million.
That would be a pretty cheap question.
I'd like to answer the question for $99 million, please.
Yes. Jen, please do answer that question for $99 million.
Who is paying the money?
Yeah, no doubt. Oh my goodness. Well, here's a question for you. Huh?
I said Bob Bigelow. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, right. We're almost up to break, but I was hoping that maybe during the next part of the show that maybe you could tell us some of the different stories that you were telling me and share with everyone, because I know you've got so much information in there. We only have an hour, and we're just trying to make sure that you get as much time as possible.
Well, on that note, let's go to our commercial break, and we'll come back in 2 minutes. So stay tuned, everybody. All right. Good job.
Yes, good job. See, doesn't it go fast, Frick?
It does. It really does.
Yeah, and really, it's just like a conversation. That's all we're doing, is having a conversation that, like Jen said, people are peeping in on. Or what did you say, Jen?
Yeah, they're just listening in.
Listening in, yeah.
They're eavesdropping.
Eavesdropping, that's the word you use. I was wondering if you wanted to bring up the mating. If maybe you could talk about mating.
Oh, yeah.
And your thoughts on mating, and maybe just anything you could think. I'm hoping that you're going to be able to tell. Do you have some stories to tell?
Yes. Not on that regard, but yes, I do.
Yeah, Jena wants the mating stories.
I would like all mating stories, please. Actually, when we were in Beeville, Mr. Morley brought up the mating, the thing down. Anyway, he was talking about it, and yeah, Jen, you're really gonna want to hear this. So we're hopefully gonna have him on the show here, hopefully in the next month.
Okay.
Jen? And roll.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. I'm Jen Kruse, and this is the Journey Radio Show. Will you help us out? We have been challenged. We have been challenged by YouTuber to a subscriber race, and currently we are not winning. So we need your help. Please help us. Go to our YouTube channel at She-Squatchers Official and click the red subscribe button and make that red button gray. And then you can hit the little bell too to get notified of when we post up new videos. But will you please help us win this battle, because we totally hate losing. So.
Yeah, we don't like losing. I don't think anybody likes losing, but especially Jen.
Especially Jen. That is very true. I'm very competitive, and I didn't start this. I couldn't actually say no. I wasn't given a choice. So here we are. We're now in this battle for our lives. Help us win, please.
Yes, and if anyone can win, Jen can. So hopefully you guys are out there and making it happen. Thank you so much in advance for subscribing.
Snooki's in the chat room saying she wishes she could subscribe more than once. I wish you could too. I wish you could too. Yeah. So back to the show, and also you can follow us on Facebook at She-Squatchers Official. That's where all our up-to-date information comes. And also check out our website at shesquatchers.com. And we're back to the show. We've got Rick Tullos with us. He's from San Antonio, Texas. Jenna met him a few weeks ago at a Bigfoot forum in Beeville, Texas. And she was so impressed by the various people that she met there. She says, we have to have these people on the show. So here we've got Rick tonight, and Jenna wants to now ask him about Bigfoot mating. Tell us more about Bigfoot mating, would you, Rick?
Yes, please.
Okay. All right. Well, one of the things that if you're wanting to know for certain whether or not these things are a primate or not a primate, particularly in the male, all primates that are arboreal, that are tree dwellers, which are chimps, orangutans, gorillas, and all those, have got a bone in their male appendage that is called the baculum. And what it is it's a different type. When a male human obtains an erection, then it is a hydraulic action caused by two muscles filling up with blood, causing that to happen. When a male gorilla, chimp, whatever, orangutan, has that process occur, it is more of a mechanical action. There is a bone in the appendage down there that is called the baculum, and the bone slides into like a sleeve in there and causes the erection. And that's one of the major differences between the Homo species, meaning man, and the great apes, is the fact that we do not have that same gear that they have.
Oh my gosh, this is totally new information for me.
Yeah.
No wonder Jenna was like, we need to have him talk about this. This is totally, I'm shocked.
There's so much that these two, Rick and Mr. Morley, were discussing. I wished so hard you were there, Jen. I wish you could have been there. But continue with that, because that's really interesting. And if you can just kind of also maybe tell us what you think about how other Bigfoot are coming in and getting partnered up, so it's not just one family. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that they form like clans, and maybe like the juveniles, as they get a little bit older, they go out and they find their own. You know, they find a female or whatever, and they'll start a new little clan. there've been a lot of reports in various areas of there being like a grandfather type figure, and maybe a father and a mother, and then a couple of two or three juveniles. I know in that area in Louisiana that I was telling you about, one of the guys, he's a justice of the peace. His name is Tommy, and he lives over in Flatonia, Texas. He was up on a stand. At the time, we were certain that they were primates, and he decided that he wanted to go up on a stand. And, he and some of the other guys, we actually had a hunters group. He went up on the stand, and he could hear them back behind him. And what we had done was we had put out like a 50-pound bag of corn on the ground, the landowner had. And he could hear something back down behind him, but he couldn't ever see it. He was looking with his night vision on a rifle scope out through those woods, and those woods are super thick anyways. So he just kept on looking until the batteries ran out in his scope. And so he said, well, forget it then. And he had a little FLIR infrared unit that was on loan from his department. The minute he put the FLIR up and took a look through it, it's one of those handheld units. This was back in 2000 and all that, so they were kind of big, and they wouldn't record. That was the thing. Nowadays they have a SD card where they can record, but he couldn't record. He could just view. Well, when he hauled that up, he could see 4 of them, 2 of them about 5 foot tall and 2 of them about 3 foot tall, just jumping and playing all over each other. One of the larger ones was off to the side, and he said that this raccoon came in to get at the corn, and then he said that big one took off after the raccoon, and the chase was on. But that was 4 of them, and I think they were all juveniles. If they were like 5 foot and 3 foot, I think they were all juveniles. But that was 4 of them in one area right there, just in one night, and they had been. I think he was on the stand till about 1:30 in the morning. He had been hearing them from about 11 that night. So there's a little family unit. That area's had a lot of activity. The 2 brothers from Honovi that y'all were talking about last week, they used to go down to that area. We had a stand up there, and the both of the brothers, Michael and Tim, were up in the stand, and it was a box stand, had a trap door under it, and they could hear something walking down the tree line. They couldn't see it, but they could hear it, and they felt something push against the edge of the stand, and then it went away, and then it came back about 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning, and Michael said that he was sitting on a bucket on the trap door. They had like a little carpet in there, and owls had gotten in there and messed on the carpet and all that. So Tim and Michael were both up in the stand. And this is like about a 12-foot tall box stand with some windows in it, wooden box stand. Got 4x4 on every corner. So he's sitting there on the trap door, and all of a sudden he hears something below him. So he takes his weight off of there where he's straddling the door. And he says about that time, and neither one of them wanted to shoot through the floor. So said about that time that he stood up, he could see the trap door come up a little bit and hear something sniffing around, doing like that. And all he could smell was that the owl mess and all that. And said that about that time, his brother Tim stomped on the floor real hard and said, "Get out of here!" And he said you could hear that thing taking off for 3 counties.
Oh, wow!
Yeah, it was crazy. But that was one of the big ones because that stand was easily about 8 foot off of the ground.
Oh, wow! And who was that to you?
That was Michael and Tim Humphreys from. Michael lives in Tallahena now, and they're the two guys from that siege at Honobia that y'all were talking about last week in Oklahoma. So that's the two brothers that were involved in that. They came down with the GCBRO and were doing some research with them. I think he's been on a couple of episodes of Killing Bigfoot, along with some of the other guys. But these things are smart. You're not going to get the drop on them that easy, and so.
It's crazy that it couldn't, if it was Bigfoot who happened to be sniffing around up there, it's weird that he didn't smell the humans up there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Granted, our scents linger, and we've got the men have those pheromones, but you'd think that he'd be able to smell it. You know what I mean?
I think what it was, he was getting a mix of smells. The owl poop and all that on the carpet, I think, was kind of masking their smells, but he wasn't quite sure. It gave him pause enough. He knew something wasn't right. That's why he stopped and kind of pushed up on that trap door. It's like, there's something not right here. And then, when he did that, then it was suspicion confirmed, get out of there.
Did they get to see him?
No, they didn't see him. They just heard him. He said he sounded heavy, but he was heavy enough where he pushed, and that was a good sized tree stand. He leaned against the side of it, and the whole stand leaned with him. So, I mean, it's like a fortress built up off the ground. It's double layer, windows in both layers, probably at least about 25, 30 foot tall. So.
Oh, wow. Wow. So when you go out doing your research, Rick, what kind of equipment are you bringing out there, especially since you're in very much the science-based research?
I've got a little FLIR 1 unit that I take with me, a Seek thermal unit. I've got a couple of GoPro cameras that I like taking out, and casting material and things like that. Game cameras. I know a lot of people haven't had much luck with game cameras. I like to try out different means, like putting one game camera looking at the other one, try to hide one better than the other one so that maybe it'll catch one of them, on one side or the other. Thank you. Smart. Haven't gotten anything with it, but I keep trying.
That must be a lot of stuff to go through, a lot of video to go through.
Yeah. Now, Mr. Morley has gotten some with his game camera. Something came up and hit the side of the tree, and then you can see a stick sail into the center of the frame. So whatever it was, it had a hand. I doubt very seriously that it was a person. I mean, if it was a person, then they might have just walked off with the game camera instead of just messing with it and throwing objects in front of it. Yeah. But
well, speaking of equipment, some people say that they think that Bigfoot may be able to see the IR. What do you think about that? Infrared, sorry.
I think that's possible. I think they might be able to see that. You can, like on a remote control, you can do a little experiment. You can take a cell phone camera and shine a remote control at it, and you can see the little IR. It looks like a little off-white light flashing in there. And I think that dogs and cats can see that a little bit too. I've heard people that have taken a remote and shined it at the ground, and the cat would sit there and be pawing at it like it's a laser pointer or something.
Oh wow! Have you and Mr. Morley looked into the actual eyeball, or have you?
You mean to the science behind the eye? Or
yes, sorry.
Well, oh no problem. I think that he might have a little bit more than I have. I believe that they have a bigger iris than we do, which allows them to take in more light. Uh, I haven't. I mean, I haven't really done as much of a study. I'm working my way up. I started at the feet and working my way up. But I certainly do believe that they have the ability to see in the dark a lot better than we do. Because I mean, that's how they navigate. I'm sorry.
I'm sure you've heard the stories of people saying that they have red eyes or that they have green eyes, and sometimes that their eyes glow without a light source.
I've heard that. I've never actually seen that myself, but I've heard it. Now I have seen. I think lately there has been a red eye shine of the Australian Yowie video that was put out. That was pretty impressive. I've heard too many reports simply to discount of there being an actual bioluminescence. I've never seen it myself, but I don't put it out as a realm of possibility because too many good researchers that I know have actually seen the same thing. Mr. Morley being one of them. He's told me, he said, yes, they do glow. They glow like a little red LED. And, for him to say that, and he's a wildlife biologist. So for him to say that, I take that pretty credible.
What would it take for that to happen? Did he explain that?
No, he didn't. I guess maybe it's some kind of chemical component because, I mean, there's a lot of creatures that bioluminesce, and so it's probably a certain mixture of chemicals in the eye that cause that or something. It's wild. It's above my pay grade, but it's it's pretty fascinating, pretty awesome.
Definitely.
I would actually like to see that myself. There's a lot of people that wouldn't, but I would.
Yeah, I would like to too. We're on the same page. And you never know, we may be getting together in Beeville again. Just never know. I know I'm going up there here. Oh boy, I'm not going to say when because I don't want anybody doing anything or messing around. But yeah, definitely going back. We're going to work on getting some audios. We've got an area that we're going to try to get some audios at where we went to. Mm-hmm. And they're going to try cooking out because it seems that at this particular location, every time they cook out outside, they end up hearing this howling, and they keep, I mean, the guy was really scared, and he took out a shotgun. He was so scared. So, I mean, he's really serious. He's scared of this stuff. And he said every time he cooks out, they're screaming and screaming. So we're going into that area. We're going to cook out. We're going to, hopefully I'll have some of my equipment down there. I don't have everything, but hopefully you'll be able to join one of the times I get down there. But if not, I completely understand. I think you're moving, aren't you?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. So, by the way, you mentioned the equipment too. Also, a little bit ago, one of the things also that I do take out and put with me is audio recorders. I forgot to say that. We hang audio recorders. I have some of the Olympus WS series. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but we hang them out, and they've got some of them have like a 36-hour battery life on there, and hang them out, and we bring them back in, and then we open them up in Audacity is a program that is a sound editor program. And we open them up in Audacity and listen and check for the little spikes in the sound bar. And we've gotten some pretty good audio doing that. Last time I got some, it was out at Sisterdale, Texas. And got some pretty good screams and whoops and stuff like that out there. So, but yeah, we use... and the bionic ear, like you have, use those.
Okay. We actually use a lot of the same equipment, which is really cool.
Yeah.
So we're kind of fun. But I mean, it's not like you really need all this equipment. So if you're out there and you're thinking, I want to be a researcher, what would be your advice on equipment?
I would say, for starters, bring a camera. Make sure you bring a camera. Talking about like a little starter kit or something. Just, I mean, if somebody's about to start in this, yeah, bring a camera. Bring an audio recorder. Go online. You can find some, pretty inexpensive on eBay. Some of the Olympus audio recorders. I like the WS series because you can plug them straight into a USB port and pull the file off of them, as opposed to plugging it into the mic slot and playing it and then recording it as you go. So I would look on eBay for the Olympus WS series audio recorders, and I would say also take look online and find one of these little FLIR or Seek infrared cameras that hook up to your cell phone. They're really good. They're not super high definition or anything, but they'll tell you if there's something out there.
But does that drain your battery at all, or?
The FLIR one doesn't. It has its own power source. I mean, you charge it up and you use it. Now the Seek will drain your battery down a little bit. If you're going to use it like continuous operation for about an hour or so, then yeah, it's going to probably drain your battery down pretty quick. I would say if you're going to go for something that you can sit for a long time and not have to worry about it draining the battery down too much, go for the FLIR one, because it charges up. You can get it for Android or iOS, and it charges up. It's got its own little port. It's like an Android type port on the side, and it's got its own onboard battery. And so you charge it up until it's full, and then while it's running on the phone, it's running on its own power source. Whereas the Seek one pulls off of the phone's power source. So, yeah.
We have a question in the chat room. Joey's in the chat. He's asking,
okay.
Do you think Bigfoot links to alien DNA?
I don't think so. I think we've got Bigfoot DNA, and it comes up pretty much close to human. So I'm kind of hesitant about making the Bigfoot alien link.
That brings up the other question. We get a lot of reports of these strange lights that are seen in and around Bigfoot sightings and areas of Bigfoot. Have you witnessed any of that yourself? And if so, do you have any thoughts on it?
No, I haven't witnessed it myself. All I can say as far as thoughts on it, it's a bigger universe than what we know. So there's a lot of stuff out there that, I could speculate on all night, but just got to keep your mind open. You got to, like I said, you got to go in the direction in which the evidence leads you. You can't jump from point A to point C. You got to follow A, B, C. So
that, and I think people need to know that they are okay if they change their minds.
Yeah.
Well, this is all learning, right? What do you think on that?
Oh, absolutely. Like I said, in 99, I came in, I was 100%. I was what they call an aper, 100%. You could not tell me that Bigfoot was not an ape, but over the slow course of trial and error and listening to the evidence, I had to, whatever remains, you hold on to it. Whatever is burned up, you got to get rid of it, and you got to hold on to what is true. Sometimes you got to unlearn before you can learn.
Good point. Very good point. So do you have any more stories? I know we only have a few minutes left, but do you have anything else that you wanted to share with the audience and Jen and I?
Well, yes. Here over the past, I'd say about year and a half, we've been doing a lot of research here around San Antonio area, inside the green belts. and that's the little channels of woods that run from like Medina County or some of the outlying areas. And back in 2010, I was the one who came out. There was a homeless couple that reported seeing a Bigfoot cross Highway 1604 out here in San Antonio. And I came out the next day, and I found tracks that were about, I didn't measure them, but they were about 5 feet apart, and it was that linear trackway. I could tell by looking at it. I saw like about, I've got a picture of it somewhere, about 7 or 8 tracks directly in a straight line, like I was walking a tightrope. I went over there beside the track, and I tried to jump up and down, and I couldn't make as deep of an impression. And it had rained on the track since then, and I still couldn't make the impression as deep. But they weren't castable. It was more like impressions because there was grass that was grown up in them, so you could see where something definitely heavy had walked across there and done that. And so since then, there's a gentleman named Rod Nichols who lives here in San Antonio who's been hitting some of these parks, and he's been finding tree structures in some of the parks. And he found one there's a park called O.P. Schnabel Park. I call it the Grand Gallery. It was one massive tree structure. It looked almost like a fortress. Also found quite a few teepee formations around some of the other parks. So what we've been kind of trying to do, I've been tied up with trying to get moved, but Rod's been going out there, and he's been hitting some of these places, and we're going to get back together once I get moved and start investigating. But we're hitting some of these green belts and going to start doing some investigating up and down through there.
Very cool.
Well, I just wanted to say thank you for coming on the show tonight, and thank you, Jena, for finding our awesome guest for tonight and lining that up. Yeah, that was awesome. And we'll hope you'll keep in touch with us and bring us more information as it comes to you. It's very interesting and lots of good feedback in the chat room tonight. So thank you so much. Is there any place online that people would be able to find you if they wanted to reach out to you?
I have a Facebook page. It's called the South Texas Bigfoot Research Alliance, and you can just type that in, and it'll go to that.
Awesome. We'll make sure to do that, everybody. And thank you so much for tuning in tonight, everyone. And we'll see you next week right here on the Journey Radio Show. Good night, everyone.
Good night.